Welcome back to another episode of the Autonomy Pods podcast. This one is a little bit different than the usual ones. This is going to be quite an impersonal and personal one as I reflect on my 29th birthday. I'm now 29, but I was in Miami for my birthday, had a very, very lovely time with my friends Jean and Shanique and their little baby Lucia. It's just absolutely gorgeous. I come back to the UK just to do the whole quarantine thing. We're about 5 days away from doing a photo shoot with a group of my clients and a day full of teaching and stuff like that, which I'm super excited about. It's probably the first time I've ever took responsibility for a full day like that. I've done seminars before, done photo shoots before, but this time it's actually the first time that I'm responsible for the whole day, how it goes from start to finish. And that's very, very new for me. So, 28 to 29 was a very interesting year for me personally. I gained a new baby, which was the business. I went from coming out of COVID, living with my parents, saving up for a flat, thinking that that's what I wanted to move up the ladder of I get quote unquote life. We fall into these things of that, these unwritten rules of what should be happening when. So, I fell into the trap of thinking that, I was at home, I was settled, financially, I was in a good place. I was working for a company that I really enjoyed working for. And I thought like the next steps for me were to kind of grow my personal life by getting a house and all that comes with that. I was in a relationship at the time. And I thought that was what I wanted for that to grow. Now, fast forward a year, I moved to Dubai again for the second time. I lived there in 2017 and was there for a year, and then I came back again now to kind of do it the right way. For me, Dubai was a place in which before to 2021, it was a place where I loved it. The pleasures of the sunshine all day, the sandpit that it was, the lots of accessibility to everything that you ever could possibly dream of was great. But for me, 2017, when I lived there, was a sour taste in my mouth. I did a really extreme photo shoot prep, which took up most of the year, which led me into a position of where 6 months of the year, 7 months of the year, you're dieting, not really enjoying what Dubai has to offer. Outside of that, I was responsible, or 1 out of 3 people responsible for making a gym. We went there for a company to make a gym. We were left with this place still being, it didn't have any toilet roll handles, or it didn't have any flooring on the gym floor when we got there. And we took it there from the whole thing of nothing all the way to being a fully fledged sold out gym with 10 trainers, 2 head coaches, and then a manager, which was awesome. But that took every ounce of everything I had. And at that moment in time, I only knew what work was. I only knew what going forward was at 100 miles an hour into a brick wall, which was great. But then I realized as I was coming closer to the end of my year there that I hadn't done anything at all related to Dubai. I hadn't been, and done the skydive. I hadn't socially made friends. I was in my bubble of the gym, and I was in the bubble of just living there, that I just forgot about what life had to offer. So when I left, there was a bit of a sour taste in my mouth, not only with the company and the way I left, but ultimately that, Dubai for me was something that I didn't really tap, I didn't touch, and I didn't enjoy to the way that I did. As far as I got was going to zero gravity on a Friday, not drinking because I was dieting, and ended up doing 20,000 steps up and down the beach in 60-degree heat, which was mental, absolutely mental. But that's what I was doing at the time. That's what I thought I wanted, and that was great. Photo shoot prep was great, taught me a lot of lessons, and I got in incredible shape. Never really had veins coming across every facet of my body, apart from that time. So that was interesting. And I looked amazing and felt crap, generally how photo shoot diets go. So when I thought about coming back in 2021, I was in a much different headspace, and I wanted to enjoy it for what it was. And I'm in the capability now to work hard, but play hard too. So that was awesome. But, working back to how 2018 unfolded, 28 to 29 unfolded, I came out of COVID, having traveled to Barcelona and the whole around the world in 2019. I stayed at home for a year, still working. And it came to about July where I started thinking about wanting to get into my own place. Lockdown restrictions had eased a little bit, so I was able to get the house or the flat and start my own quote unquote like happy little life. But that wasn't to be. not only was it not to be in a sense of it didn't happen because I'm now in Dubai, but in a sense of that I didn't actually enjoy the progressive model in which I thought I would needed to go up. And that's often the case. I work with clients every single day that are fucking unhappy with their job and unhappy with the standings they're in. And I never truly understood it until then. I'd never been led blind leading the blind per se to a position where I really didn't like who I was or what I was doing. Before I'd always acted like an idiot or not doing enough self-work on myself or put myself in a hole for working too hard. But this was genuinely the first time that I'd been properly influenced by what everyone else was doing to then just do that specific thing. So I moved into the flat, and within a couple of weeks, I'd got my boyhood dream of getting a dog. And then that added responsibility on top of responsibility, which then led to not being able to walk the dog because of my knee injury, which led to the dog not really going out that much, being a bit wild and really hard to coach or to teach. So that led to a lot of nights spent trying to figure out how I was going to solve this problem of having a dog and the responsibility of a flat when I wasn't really enjoying myself with it in the first place. And then a couple of months after, I left the place I was working quite abruptly. I'd been unhappy for a few months there based on some changes that they made. I was high up where, I was running the team. I was head of education. I was, being perceived in a place and where I thought I was going to stay forever. Then some things changes within the system. And that just changed the way I felt about the whole company, the people that were in there. And it changed for a lot of other people. The 10 other coaches left after me. So it wasn't just the way I felt, it was the way that everyone was feeling. And that really explained to me how culture really works. Culture is a composition and an addition of all of the things within it. And they're all contributing factors to how that works, how it doesn't work. And when it doesn't work, it goes downhill very, very quickly. So I left there. And, before I was leaving, I never thought of myself as a businessman. I never thought of myself as someone that would ever work on my own. I always was second fiddle. I was always head of this or senior person of this, as opposed to this is your baby. And it was forced out of necessity because I really had nothing else to do, nowhere else to go apart from the pain of leaving somewhere that you thought you were going to stay forever and then moving to a place of where you have nothing and you have to work. Your back is against the wall. And I was no stranger to hard work. And I knew that I had to put work in to do that. So I just poured my heart into this thing. And luckily it got off the ground very, very quickly. And I started, working hard, being my own boss, doing all the things that CEOs do, which is do everything. You often hear about CEOs of businesses that were the cleaner, the finance person, the salesperson, the receptionist, the CEO and the admin staff or IT technology or IT services. You're everything at the beginning of a business. And that's quite exciting because I knew what I was doing for the coaching side of things. I'd coached for 10 years. I was fucking good at it. I still am really good at it. Not to toot my own horn or whatever, but 10 years of hard work gets you quite far. And I was able to do that with my eyes closed. But it was all of the business side of things. It was the responsibility side of things that really took to me a little bit differently. So I started the business, and we by the time I was 4 months in, I was looking for new coaches, new staff members, and that was really, really exciting. So the growth that I had in a 6-month period from September to February was just unreal. Mentally, physically, emotionally, I was completely a different person, which was nice. It was nice to know that the book felt with me. Oh my God, can't even speak. Don't even know why I'm doing a podcast. The book fell with me at every single point, and that responsibility was something I thrived off, and that was awesome. But then, I was still struggling with the responsibility of the house and the dog and being in a relationship and, dealing with COVID and trying to not be fat at the same time because all you just want to do when you're tired or, you whatever is just eat whatever the fuck you want. And trying to battle all of these things really put me in a place of where I was unhappy. Like I was unemotional. And like, if you know a little bit about psychology or any type of stuff around how people behave, you'll know that people do one or two things when their back's up against the wall. Emotionally, they will they will double down. They will go back at the person, or they will go back at the situation and try harder, like the fuck you mentality. Michael Jordan is a really good example of that. Tiger Woods is a really good example of how his relationship with his dad was. All of these elite athletes do the whole fuck you. And then they go and double down and be better than they've ever done before. They train harder than they've ever done before. Whereas I'm not like that. I'm an emotional soul. I'm a softie at heart. So I detach away from situations, which meant that feeling emotion was really, really difficult. Whatever the weather happened, whatever the day was, whatever the thing that I was doing in the day, whatever the outcome of that thing was, I didn't feel shit. I woke up in the morning, didn't feel nothing, went to bed feeling nothing. So my emotional needs were not met because I simply wasn't emotional. I was detached away from the situations, which meant that I kept on falling down this ladder of just plodding along, hoping it would get better, not feeling anything because I thought that feeling nothing was better than feeling everything. Whereas actually now that's a mistake. I realized that you have to feel shit and get over it, and you have to accept it to move through it. So I detached away from these situations for a good period of time until, March, April time. We all really came crashing down. I always have to take props to my friend Elliot, who has always been on this spiritual slash looking after your mental health type of mentality for years on end. And I'd always kind of followed him a little bit with what he did. So when he got a hypnotherapist, I got the same hypnotherapist. We used to talk about deep stuff. We used to express things really, really nicely, and that was awesome. But he recommended, because he knew how I felt, and we used to speak. He was the only person I really I spoke about these things to from a deeper level. Was that he's like, you just need to get a therapist. You need to go and speak to someone specifically designed for this. I'd always had coaches before, mentors in the fitness industry or business. I had a mentor from a business perspective. I had a financial advisor. I had, my mum and dad who I considered mentors. I've always had a coach. I had a Spanish teacher when I wanted to learn Spanish. I had a Hindi teacher when I was going to learn Hindi. All these things really started to I needed a coach for my headspace, because the amount of times that you can back yourself or it from a mental perspective against a wall, it's just really easy to do. And if you don't have the strategy systems or even the ability or the awareness to do something with it, then you're never going to be able to come out of that funk. So I got a therapist, and that really when shit started to hit the fan, because she asked me questions that I didn't even know the answer to, such as, what is success to you? Or who is Nathan? I fucking hate that question. I really, really hate it, because it just exposes you completely to someone that you might not even know who you are. And for me, I knew who I was. And when I started listing off the things that I said I was, they were all external validation methods. They were, I have a flat, a dog, a car, X amount of figures in my bank account, a nice watch, good looking, or whatever it was, external validations completely. She's like, but who are you? Like, you take away things that you can tell me about, but who do you stand for, and what do people say that you are when you have a conversation with them? I don't know. I don't have a clue who I am. And that was really interesting, because those type of questions just ruin you for days and days and days until you realize you figure out the answer, that there is no answer, that you just don't know, and that you need to start figuring it out and start molding what you are, because you are the only person that can change that or be a leader within that change. So I started on that quest to answer the questions that she had, and work through the detachment that I had from these situations. And the blessing, but also negative of these situations, is that when you start to not detach, you start to feel shit. And normally, if you've been detached away from the situation, it's something that you've either been avoiding, or that it's not something that you want to come to terms with. So over that, fast forwarding a little bit, because that took 8 to 10 sessions for me to realize how fucked I was, and that I needed to do something about it. And identifying those things were particularly tough, considering that the responsibility of the house and the dog and having a girlfriend and all of these things were probably the reason, or not probably, they were the reason why I felt a certain way. There was nothing significantly wrong with the person I was in a relationship with. She was brilliant, and she great support, best friend I've ever had from a female perspective. But I just didn't feel the way I wanted to with her in some facets of a relationship, which are really important, like attraction or intimacy. And I had to make these difficult decisions to move away from these scenarios that were not serving me and not actually what I wanted. So I decided to, as Nathan always does, which is he just does everything 110% in the right manner. I made a decision and cut them off. Within a week and a half, I'd gone from a relationship, a house, a car, a dog, and all of these things that were perceived happiness, to lightening the load of my responsibility from not having a dog because we got it rehomed, or me and my parents got it rehomed, which is the saddest moment of my life so far, and breaking up with the girlfriend and deciding to move back to traveling like I enjoyed when I was doing 2019, and deciding that Dubai was going to be that place because it was everything that I wanted from a lifestyle perspective, and tax free and VAT free and everything free. So that's how I decided to do that. And just removing those layer by layer within those week and a half, it felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulder, and there was no regret, shame, or guilt around it, which showed me that it was the right decision to be made. So we can say that 28 to 30 has been a lesson for me, and understanding what you want, what those things are, identifying when you're detaching and not detaching, and then moving into a place where you can comfortably say that you're working towards your values, what you want, and you're completely happy. And you've got to feel happy. Like, you can't just say you're happy because you've got a new Rolex, or you can't say you're happy because you got a new car, because those things are fleeting. I had an A-class Mercedes in July. By August, I was like, I want a C-class. And it wasn't because I wanted a fucking C-class. It was because I wanted to feel something, like some external validation of like, yeah, I fucking made it. Or I wanted a better car because I wanted that perk up. I was looking for that short-term gratification. And like, I didn't know what that was at that time when I got it, but it was just short-term gratification, wanting it wrapped up in having a new motor. And whilst the C-Class is still with my dad, and it's a baby, and it's a beauty of a car with white leather interior, and it's such a don of a car, and I'll use it when I'm back in the UK like I am right now, and I'll probably get a C-Class when I get a car in Dubai potentially, unless I can afford something like a Ferrari, which is a way off. I will get one of those because it's a beautiful car, but I didn't buy it for the right reasons. And from 28 to 29, and what I'm learning now as I transition into 29, into looking towards my 30, which is 333 days away, which is too long away, or it's not long enough away. I'm looking at life a little bit differently from a perspective of like what people think that they want versus what they want, what their emotions are telling them, what their thoughts are telling them, and overall what their overall actions or behaviors are telling them. Now, if you like putting it back into a nutrition standpoint, if you don't want to diet, you don't diet. Like, you eat more in some way, shape, or form. You can call it self-sabotage, or you can call it just not wanting to do the specific thing enough. Whatever it is. If you don't want to diet and you don't want to lose weight, truly emotionally within your heart, you'll find ways not to. But equally, if you truly want to, and it's deep down rooted, and you really want to diet, you'll find a way. You'll try really hard to make it happen. And it's the same with emotions, and it's the same with mindset. It's like, if you want to be happy, there's multiple ways to make you happy from a external perspective or an internal perspective. And what I've been learning now through, again, the therapy and the deep bloody questions that Angela keeps asking me, who is my therapist, is it's like, what do you feel like you need right now to live the life you want to lead? And if I would have been asked that a year ago, I probably would have said the things that I got: the flat, the car, the house, girlfriend. But now that you've gone through that stage of actually having a period of where you think you're getting what you wanted, then you realize that it's not what you wanted, and now you're on the next level, which is like, you have to question that even deeper. You have to go to a deeper level. So when you feel something, you've got to question those feelings, as opposed to just take them as liberal. Like, yeah, it'd be lovely to have this, but why would it be lovely to have that? Why does that benefit me? Or what does that benefit me? Like, there was an instance recently where like anything you do, any decision you make can be an external or internal validation method. Let me give you an example. So most people who know my story know that I've got a fucked up knee that, needs a knee replacement. But when I was in Miami, I was really concerted about making sure my knee is a priority because, it's not going to last that long and I need to get a knee replacement. So, I need to look after that and make decisions for that. That's going to keep me happy, because when that knee just gets in pain, then I'm the worst person to be around ever. So I went to it as I naturally do. I would go to a night out and I would go and see someone play like house music. Like Black Coffee was playing in Miami. Now, I hadn't been to a rave in a year and a half. Super, super excited. Now, when I go to a rave, it's 8 hours, 10 hours long, and you're two-stepping for that amount of time, and my knee would be fucked. Whereas in this scenario, I looked at the scenarios like, what do I want? I want to go to a rave. I don't want my knee to hurt. Okay, what's the solution to this problem? Well, the solution to the problem is sit down more. And if anybody knows that you can go to a rave, the only option that you have to sit down is one, you get blindly drunk and you fall over, or secondly, you buy a table. Now, in previous pasts, I'd bought tables. I bought tables in India, which is a whole different story. I'm going to get Kunal to come on to actually explain our experiences with buying a table in the Playboy Mansion in India, in Mumbai. Hilarious, and never again. And you can buy it for clout. You can buy it for the people, the attention, the manifestation of potentially, oh, well, these girls are going to be interested because you've got the bottle of Grey Goose, or your Dom Perignon's got the fucking sparklers on the top, or whatever it is. Or you could buy it for the intention of not making my knee hurt. And having that time where, yeah, you get all those royalties of having a table and you pay for the expense. But for me, it was about that knee. So a lot of my mindset shift over the last 3 to 4 months has been around about still making the same decisions, potentially the same decisions, but with different intentions. And that has changed the way I feel about certain scenarios. It's changed the way I feel about spending money. It's changed the way I feel about questioning my decisions for my business, for my personal life. Because you could want to jump into a relationship, and this turned into a fucking Jeremy Kyle fucking episode of relationships, but you could jump into a relationship for 2 reasons. One is you can jump into a relationship to get gratification back that someone likes you and the affirmation that someone loves you and whatever. Or you could jump into a relationship because that's what you want to give to someone else. You're able to have stability within your own life. You're able to have what you can stand on your own 2 feet by yourself, but you want to take that next step to be in a formal relationship, a companionship, and a partnership. But going into it with the different intentions creates different outcomes. And that's what I've been learning. Like, if you go into a relationship expecting someone to fill the void of what you've got, it's always going to be sought after. You're always going to be seeking that validation. Do you love me? Why didn't you text me back? Or, you've changed. Or, if eventually you might actually get that validation, and then you might think, oh, well, it's not enough and I'm going to move on to someone else. Or it's not enough that the other person is giving me. It's all about what I'm getting back. Whereas the intentions to go and can create a companionship because you're full and you're fine on your own, just because now you want to create that companionship because it will add extra to your life, you're able to then go and give it with the right intentions. And like, I never really knew the definition between the two. Like, I just thought, oh, you get into a relationship and then A, B, C, D, E and happens. But it really isn't about that. Like, you have your own intentions, you have your own boundaries, you have your own reasons for doing it. And knowing those reasons and identifying why this is important, why you want to do this, and is it something necessary? Are you relying on something else for your own validation? Are you relying on someone else for your own happiness? Are you relying on someone else for your filling of your void? And for years, I'd done that. I'd relied on travel. I'd relied on girlfriends. I'd relied on attention from other people. I'd relied on business or work to kind of fill that void that I was good enough. But like, now is a little bit different, because once you understand what your core belief is, you understand that, my core belief is I'm not good enough. Well, why aren't you good enough? And you start working on why aren't you good enough, and you start working on how do I prove to myself, or how do I work out that I am good enough? and I don't need those things to fill that void, you end up filling it yourself, and you end up figuring out how to fill it yourself because you are responsible for that at the end of the day. The other is just more short-term gratification that never lasts. So those were my insights on the evolution, probably from an emotional, mental side of things. From a physical side of things, I haven't really progressed in any way, shape, or form. Probably developed a better beard over the last year. I think I've actually started to grow a beard from 28 to 29. I've had multiple haircuts and I still can't get it right. I still keep going for the fade on the side with the one at the bottom, and then gradually grading it upwards, and then just a little bit off the top. But then I went for something in Miami with a little bit of a line in, and it graded it from 0 up to 1, and I looked like fucking Jimmy Neutron. So I still can't get this haircut right. It's took me 29 years to still get it. I've had some absolutely horrific haircuts in my time, from back in the day when I got a night tick put in it when I was 11, all the way to a mohawk, all the way to long hair like Justin Bieber. I used to straighten it every day for college. And then going back to that short back and sides, or snides, as I would call it. So the haircut perspective or physical perspective have not really changed. Training has been great for me this year. I got a new coach 6 months ago, him, who obviously some of you know because he's one of our coaches. And that has changed the game for me, really, not only from a physical perspective, but the guy's a true gentleman as well, and understands a lot about all the other facets of nutrition, training, binge eating, emotional side of things. And I think we've learned a lot from each other during this time frame. And not to mention, if I value his coaching so much that I trust him with my clients as well. So I've got to be able to trust him with myself. And training well is he's going really well, pressing the 50s. And my body weight's like 73 this morning, which is cool, considering that I was soaking wet 59 kilos when I was 23, coming into working as a personal trainer, or 21, I should say 21. I was 59 kilos after my first diet, and now I'm 73 kilos, and I'd probably equal the amount of condition I've got in about 2 kilos time. So I've put on a considerable amount of tissue over the last 8 years, which is awesome. And this year's just about building strength and getting back into it. But outside of that, I think there's some great revelations from 28 to 29. One of them being the Manscaped, the Lawnmower 3.0, which is a shaver for your balls and your private areas, which guarantees not to create any type of knocking, or how do I say this? It doesn't nip your ball sack when you're trying to shave it, which is amazing for any guys out there that I've ever tried to shave so closely that they nip it, which is a very, very painful experience. The Lawnmower 3.0 Manscaped, I'm not even sponsored by them, but I wish I was an absolute dream. And it's even got a little light on there, so when you're getting deep down the bottom end, you can see everything that you want. so on a lighthearted note, this year we started a supplement company as well. So we've got our protein powders, t-shirts, pre-workouts, and we've been able to accomplish a lot and realized a lot of things about my quality of life on a day-to-day basis. So, when I was going through that rough time, I thought about the things that I do on a day-to-day basis that I absolutely fucking love. None of those small things that you take joy from every day. Well, I had none of those because I was completely detached. So I started making these small things that I took joy from every single day. So I became a coffee connoisseur. I became a person who, loves a coconut latte in the mornings. I don't care what you think about it, but a coconut latte is absolutely fantastic. And then I became someone that took care and understanding around the beans. And I started looking at different beans and blends from Colombia, Guatemala, and Ethiopia, and Australia, and LA, or wherever it's from. And me and my friends started grading them. So we have this now unwritten. It's in the note section that we share between each other on iTunes, on iPhone, where we grade our best coffee beans based on acidity, taste, and like how it comes across. Like, you're taking those small adjustments, those small niceties on a day-to-day basis, your quality of life just gets a little bit better. You start like buying nice little, I don't know, like you start eating little bits of food that you probably wouldn't have ate before that are nice. You start eating a little bit more organic, or you start having the small minutiae every single day. You know, some people may think that's like a cigarette in the morning before they start work, or, you know, it's a little bit of a couple of pages of their book that improves their quality of life. Maybe some people think that's a weekend away. Someone might say that's a nice laptop or an expensive webcam that improves their quality of what they do on a day-to-day basis. But I found really joy in coffee. And it's a beauty because you can only have it, like, well, for me personally, I only have it like once or twice a day. So it gives that excitement to the day, and you're just looking forward to that morning cup where you're trying a new bean and you're trying something new and you're learning about something like it's a skill. And we tried multiple different ways. We tried the espresso machine, we tried the V60, we tried the cafetiere, always with a different taste and a different flavor, which allowed us to take this enjoyment out of this small thing that was just a case of buying different beans as opposed to the stuff that you see in the supermarket, and just having that camaraderie to enjoy it, which is really important. I learned a lot about friendship this year, because when you leave a job and you're always going to be, you know, around those people day in and day out, and you're somewhat of a management figure or of a head coach to other people, you think you build these relationships with people, and it turns out that, you know, if you leave a job and people don't continue to message you or be friends with you, it just shows who will stay around. And those who like, I got a quote that I said to Kunal today, who's one of the guys that did stay around because he's a good friend, is that, you know, those that stick around those that want to stick around will stick around. And, you know, I use that analogy in very much circumstances after this now. So if I meet someone new, or I start talking to a girl, or do this, that, and the other, people who want to stick around will make the effort to stick around. And if they don't, then they don't want to stick around. Whether that's minimal contact, or they just don't reply to you, or whatever it is, they will show their intention some way, shape, or form. So I learned the ability to learn new friendship rules. You know, I learned about how to, you know, keep in contact with people across the world, and how to have deep conversation with some people, how to ask great questions when you're trying to be a great friend. You know, and ultimately friendship is about sharing and being, I think, to be honest, people in my life have gone from a friend to a companion now, because I value companionship a lot more. So whether it's you spend a little bit of time with them, or they share similar experiences to you. But for friend, for me, is just someone that you know that you can talk a little bit to. But a companion is someone that you can share experiences and life events and emotional talks with. I think that changes the game for me, and I'm that type of soul where I'm a bit, as I said, a bit soft. So I like to be able to share those emotional, mental kind of woes, or just successes, or just generally be honest with people about how I'm feeling, or what has been troubling, or what has been going on with them. So I've turned friends into companions this year, and that has now meant that my circle is closer than ever, and they're further away than ever because they're in different parts of the world. But you're able to forge this companionship, and everyone you have a relationship with or a companionship with has shared experiences with you. You know, I will never forget the time I went to America with Kunal, and we traveled across the whole of the all of the US, and we went to India together. I never forget the time where Elliot came over to me to see me in Barcelona, and then we see each other weekly when we were in Dubai. I'll never forget the time where me and Declan, you know, lived together in Dubai too, and I stayed with Adam and all of these people that I would consider companions, because you share stuff with them and you shared experiences. So I've turned friends into companions. And then I've learned this is the most important thing. I learned that it's okay for not everybody to like you, and not in a case of like, oh, fuck you guys, if you don't like me, fuck you, but more in a case of that you should have high expectations for who you have around you. You should have standards that you're willing to, or not willing to, compromise for, when it comes to the way that you want to be treated, or the way that you want to be talked to or acted around. Had a situation this year where I was speaking to a girl who was incredibly beautiful, like absolute socks off, completely, like, you know, it's one of those where as lads you'd probably clap impulsively together as a group of guys if you've seen the picture, and you're like, yeah, fair play, she's beautiful. And we were talking for a while, and we spent a lot of time together. But there was just a situation in which I wasn't getting what I wanted out of it. You know, I was feeling a certain way, which was not particularly useful, and I wanted that to change. Now, I'd never been able to really stand up for myself based on what I was feeling. Normally, I'd accommodate or compromise to change for the other person, because especially if you're talking to a nice, beautiful girl, you want to kind of fit the mold. You want to be liked, especially like for me, like one of my biggest things is like I'm not good enough, and like if I don't compromise, then I'm not going to be good enough, and it triggers off my core belief. But it was the first time that I'd ever said, look, if you don't do this for me or this doesn't happen, then we're not going to talk anymore in the same way that we want to. And it was incredibly liberating to go through that process of having that conversation, her not doing that specific thing or not wanting to do it, and biting back pretty hard on why I wanted that to be done. And by holding my standards and holding what I felt was true and what I felt was going to be beneficial for both of us, it really showed me that that wasn't the thing between us, wasn't what was supposed to be. And by holding those standards for yourself, I was incredibly liberated and incredibly in a position where I was like, holy shit, like I don't have to compromise for anybody. And if that person walks away from this, then that's okay. Because if they didn't want to do something that was so small to help me feel a certain way, then actually they're probably not the right person for me. And that was the first time I'd ever experienced that. And it was crazy considering, you know, what I had her on a pedestal about being very good looking and charismatic and, you know, having a really, you know, good job or like really caring about her role, etc. Like that, regardless of what the relationship between us was. I think when you hold your standards and you hold what you won't compromise on, and, you know, those things are firmly rooted in place, you get to see what it's like to not feel shit when you compromise, and you get to hold your own ground on what you don't want to take from your day. It's almost like, you know, putting a suit or armory on so that you don't get hurt, or not even hurt, but like you don't get these pinpricks of knives or gunshot bullets that will wound you, because like internally you're feeling a certain way, and externally you're trying to bat it off like it doesn't matter. But actually it does matter, because when you're aware of these things and they do change the way that you feel, or they change the way that you have an emotional response, you end up wanting those to change anyway. So when you compromise, you never get that back. So having no compromise in those situations it was incredibly liberating. And, you know, an old person I used to speak to, who was you can call her a therapist if you want to. She wasn't my therapist, but she was just someone that was a therapist, said that compromise is regret waiting to happen. And I like that statement. Not many people think it's like, they don't want to popularly believe that because they've probably compromised a lot in their lives in some way, shape, or form. But when you compromise in a way that you don't want to for someone else to do something, you end up giving part of what you wanted away, and then you end up being moderately unhappy, and that's when the regret happens. You know, I wish that was happening, or I wish this was going to be the way. And I can definitely attest to that in the past, where, you know, I've compromised or bent over backwards or not had any boundaries with myself, and ended up regretting giving all of this in this way, shape, or form when I didn't really like it, to someone else, or whatever the situation was, business, life, whatever, personal life. So compromise is regret waiting to happen. So when you're thinking about these situations that you put yourself in, whether it's business, work, life, whatever the situation is, if you're aware enough to know that it's something that you don't want to compromise on, don't for nothing, because there'll always be another chica, or there'll always be another job opportunity, or there'll always be another friend that will come in and do that, because it's the laws of averages. Like, there's millions of people on this world. Like, you're going to find someone that's like-minded, very similar to you, that'll have similar values, that will do that better for you. And it's only the short-term defeat or the short-term pain of not having someone instantly, or not having that job instantly, or not having that financing instantly, that stops us from making this decision, because we don't want to go without. Whereas if you are prepared to go without because it's actually making you go with yourself, you'll be in a much better place. And that's what I learned too. So I'm just going to wrap up this this year's reflection, some things that are happening and are going to happen between 29 and 30. And I'm manifesting it here because, you know, where else am I going to talk shit apart from my Instagram or to my friends? But, you know, Autonomy is going to continue to grow bigger. And by the time I do my reflection on my 30th, we should be hopefully a 7-figure company. which is the goal. Yeah, I don't really care about finances, but what that represents is that I will have helped thousands of people, which is the goal. The goal is to help as many people as possible maintain their weight after losing a significant amount of weight during a dieting phase and keep it off in the long term. So that's the 7 figures doesn't really matter to me, but what it matters to me is the number of people that we represent and help. I'll have continue to work with the OTE and with Adam very, very closely, and we'll have a separate business with the OTE approved, which is helping coaches get amazing results with their clients, but also go through the process itself. So that business will be thriving in itself in 1 year's time, 100% certain of that. I'll probably still be in Dubai, but no promises, because I can go wherever I want to. I'll probably at 30 have a little bit of another meltdown about what it is that I want to do, settle down at 30 or 32 or when to have kids or whatever it is, depending on what that situation is. And I can guarantee that there's one thing out of everything that'll happen between 29 and 30 is that I'll grow. Mentally, emotionally, and physically. Hopefully I gain some tissue and get a bit bigger. Not that my chest needs it, but maybe somewhere on my back would be great, my booty. Emotionally, I'm going to get more intelligent, managing the emotions, managing my core beliefs, managing the situations that I'll be put in front of, the adversity that I'll be put in front of, and hopefully knocking that down each and every step. And then mentally, I'll grow, because there's no other option. Like in my mind, that same mentality of when I left my old company to set up my own business, there was no option back. It was against the wall to kind of had to move forwards. And I truly feel like that now with my work on myself. There's like no other option to be able to do that, because it's so bleeds into everything that I do. Like if I'm not emotionally intelligent, I'm not going to be able to have the right conversations or react in the right way with individuals, for my coaching, for my personal life, for my business. If I don't have the physical capabilities, if I don't treat myself well, I don't eat well, then I'm going to feel like shit, be unproductive, and not get help as many people as possible. And then there's no option from a mental side of things, because I have to grow to take on new challenges, practice new things, go against things that I hate, and conquer them. So that back up against that wall mentality has never left, and that's why growth will happen. And we will just continue to help people in any way, shape, or form. I got into this industry, and I will continue to get into this industry deeper with more people, to just help people in any way, shape, or form. Anyone that struggled with things that I've struggled with, you can count on my last Rolo to help you, because that's exactly what I'll be doing. So we will get into this, and we'll keep into this flow of things by helping people, as many people as possible, giving as much free advice as possible, giving as much paid advice as possible, coaching, whatever we can give to people, we will. And that will be, the statement for the next 10 years, as opposed to just the one. But that's how strongly we believe, we as a team, and I believe in what we give and what we're offering. It's a different beast altogether compared to most of the coaching services, because we care about what happens after the diet. And that's always going to be the calling card for what we do, because we get people in shape, but we keep them in shape as well, so they never need a coach again. And that's what drives me every single day. That's going to drive me from 29 to 40 to 50, and hopefully by then the message, the system, and the company will be built enough that I can, I don't know, keep on doing it, but without the stress of having to work 10 hours a day. That would be nice. So apart from that, hopefully you enjoyed this episode. If you do want to try the new Autonomy supplements, whether it's the fresh orange pre-workout or the Autonomy 100% whey strawberries and cream, drop me a DM and we'll sort out a deal. I'm not even making any money on them. I just want to get good quality product out there and help people as best as possible in any way, shape, or form, whether that's supplements, coaching, or just general talking shit on a podcast. So apart from that, guys, have a lovely week and chat soon.